That's where you got to find the answer. That's where you got to be the one to figure it out. And that's where it comes back to science being seriously difficult to do, because it's about the pursuit of the truth, right? This is a little bit of a lighter sense of humor. This article is old, 2008, The Importance of Stupidity in Scientific Research, in the Journal of Cell Science. And I've always thought of it as, I've known about this article for a long time, always thought of it as a useful read to understand something particularly important about science that needs to be maintained, and that it's okay to feel really stupid with some of these different things. That is not necessarily wrong thing, so long as you're learning and you're gaining evidence and evidentiary-based knowledge and reason and logic and all that good stuff. It doesn't necessarily. You gotta be okay sometimes with feeling like an idiot. If you're gonna be a scientist, and Lord only knows I've had that happen to me more than a few times in my professional life. So I figured this would be a good one to go through and immortalize some of the context and thoughts. For the folks here, this is written by Martin Schwartz, 2008, the Journal of Cell Science. I recently saw an old friend for the first time in many years. We had been PhD students at the same time, both studying science, although in different areas. She later dropped out of graduate school, went to Harvard Law School, and is now a senior lawyer for a major environmental organization. At some point, the conversation turned to why she had left graduate school. To my utter astonishment, she said it was because it made her feel stupid. After a couple of years of feeling stupid every day, she was ready to do something else. I had thought of her as one of the brightest people I knew, and her subsequent career supports that view. What she said bothered me. I kept thinking about it. Sometime the next day, it hit me. Science makes me feel stupid too. It's just that I've gotten used to it. So used to it, in fact, that I actively seek out new opportunities to feel stupid. I wouldn't know what to do without that feeling, even if I even think it's supposed to be this way. Let me explain. For almost all of us, one of the reasons that we liked science in high school and college is that we were good at it. That can't be the only reason. Fascination and understanding with the physical world and an emotional need to discover new things has to enter into it too. Now, I would add the other kind of thing is that you have a persnickety desire to understand the world and you want to understand the truth, specifically what the truth is about how certain things work in the physical realm or in the social realm. And so that would be another reason that I would add to it, but that's a whole other thing. But high school and college, science means taking courses, and doing well in courses means getting the right answers on tests. If you know these answers, you do well and get to feel smart. A PhD, in which you have to do a research project, is a whole different thing. For me, it was a daunting task. How could I possibly frame the questions that would lead to significant discoveries? Design and interpret an experiment so that the conclusions were absolutely convincing, foresee difficulties and see your ways around them, or failing that, solve them when they occurred. My PhD project was somewhat interdisciplinary, and for a while, whenever I ran into a problem, I pestered the faculty in my department who were experts in the various disciplines that I needed. I remember the day when Harry Taub, who won a Nobel Prize 2 years later, told me he didn't know how to solve the problem I was having in his area. I was a third-year graduate student, and I figured that Taub knew about 1,000 times more than I did, conservative estimate. If he didn't have the answer, nobody did. That's when it hit me. Nobody did. That's why it was a research problem. And being my research problem, it was up to me to solve. Once I faced that fact, I solved the problem in a couple of days. It wasn't really very hard, I just had to try a few things. The crucial lesson was that the scope of things I didn't know wasn't merely vast, it was, for all practical purposes, infinite. The realization, instead of being discouraging, was liberating. If our ignorance is infinite, the only possible course of action is to muddle through as best we can. I'd like to suggest that our PhD programs often do students a disservice in two ways. Firstly, if you're wondering why I'm scrolling, it's because this stupid thing is stuck here. Oh, well, yeah, I could do it that way too, but that's not the way I wanted to read it. Sorry. Um, I'd like to suggest that our PhD programs do students a disservice in two ways. First, I don't think students are made to understand how hard it is to do research and how very, very hard it is to do important research. It's a lot harder than taking even very demanding courses. What makes it difficult is that research is immersion into the unknown, in the unknown, rather. We just don't know what we're doing. We can't be sure whether we're asking the right question or doing the right experiment until we get the answer or the result. Admittedly, science is made harder by competition for grants and space in top journals. But apart from all that, doing significant research is intrinsically hard, and changing departmental, institutional, and or national policies will not succeed in lessening its intrinsic difficulty. Going after the truth is hard, is the short answer there. And you often feel like an idiot doing it because it is so hard, and you obviously have to understand that some people don't have the answer. Some of the questions we don't have answers to just yet. And that's, if you're going into science, your job to figure it out. Your job to figure out just the answer to the question that you've posed, if that's what you're doing for your research project, and you can't rely on somebody else. And so there's a certain amount of independence that there is. It's not to say you can't do interdisciplinary questions and what have you, but if it's the question that you've set out to solve, set out to answer, to find the truth about in your research project, you're the one who has to do that. And it can be really, really challenging, and it can be really, really, at times, you really do feel like an idiot because you don't know exactly what you're doing in the slightest. And sometimes that's the case. Second, we don't do a good enough job of teaching students how to be productively stupid. That is, if we don't feel stupid, it means we're not really trying. I'm not talking about relative stupidity, in which other students in the class actually read the material, think about it, and ace the exam, whereas you don't. I'm also not talking about the bright people who might be working in areas that don't match their talents. Science involves confronting our absolute stupidity. That kind of stupidity is an existential fact inherent in our efforts to push our way into the unknown. Preliminary and thesis exams have the right idea when the faculty committee pushes until the student starts getting answers wrong or gives up and says, I don't know. The point of the exam isn't to see if the student gets all the answers right. If they do, it's the faculty who failed the exam. The point is to identify the students' weaknesses, partly to see where they need to invest some effort, and partly to see whether the students' knowledge fails at sufficiently high level that they are ready to take on the research project. Productive stupidity means being ignorant by choice. Focusing on important questions puts us in an awkward position of being ignorant. One of the beautiful things about science is that it allows us to bumble along, getting it wrong time after time, and feel perfectly fine as long as we learn something each time. No doubt this can be difficult for students who are accustomed to getting answers right. No doubt reasonable levels of confidence and emotional resilience help, but I think scientific education might do more to ease what is a very big transition from learning what other people once discovered to making your own discoveries. The more important we become, more comfortable we become with being stupid, the deeper we will wade into the unknown, and the more likely we are to make big discoveries. And this is an interesting thing because, of course, it gets to the transition from K through 12 and university, undergrad to grad school, and that is the transition that you have to make because for a lot of your classwork, you're in the thing of somebody's giving you the answers. I mean, you learn how to do mathematical logic and reasoning and 2 + 2 = 5 and where do proofs come from and, chemical theories and all this other kind of stuff that other people have found over many, many years or many, many hundreds of years or millennia for some disciplines. If you go all the way back to the wee origins of science. And that's where it is kind of important to recognize that once you start transitioning into the thing of, this is a question that nobody has an answer to, nobody's really found the truth about, or in a lot of cases may also be the same thing of, I don't know. And others are starting to work on this too, but now we have conflicting answers, so we don't know what the answer is because we have two different things of why it might be. And being creative in doing research to actually figure out how to solve a problem, and go after these kinds of things, it's important to be stupid. To recognize that you're not going to have any idea what you're doing in certain things at times. And for some students who are transitioning into doing serious STEM disciplines or social science disciplines, it's not the most comforting feeling when you've been getting it right all the time. And you do have to transition into the thing of, well, now you have to be the one to figure out what the answer is. And you're not there, your teacher doesn't have the right answer, or may not even have an answer at all. Your best professor may not have an answer at all to your question. That's where you got to find the answer. That's where you got to be the one to figure it out. And that's where it comes back to science being seriously difficult to do, because it's about the pursuit of the truth, right? And so you can feel really, really stupid until you realize, you can feel really, really stupid as you bumble along doing research, figuring out what the truth is behind something. And it's okay. It is totally okay to feel absolutely stupid doing STEM research or doing science research at all. And a lot of the best scientists in the world will probably say the same thing. I would imagine that, you know what? We felt like idiots when we were doing it. And I'm giving honest truth, I felt like I flunked my PhD dissertation defense, and I felt like I flunked my master's thesis defense. And I didn't, obviously, sitting here with a PhD now. And yeah, so you feel stupid a lot of times. You will feel stupid. And it's okay as you're bumbling along the search for the truth. There's a big difference, though, because K through 12 and undergraduate education has its important factors that you have to learn the fundamentals, and that's a lot of the point of a master's thesis defense or dissertation defense is making. A prelim, an oral prelim, for those, not the defenses themselves, but oral prelim exams are basically saying, do you have enough background knowledge and things like that to be able to do this, even if you don't know the answer to all these other things that we're asking you, and that's okay. So, just a little gem I wanted to dig up and share with you guys, because it's actually pretty important when you're answering questions that nobody's tried to answer before. It's important to be stupid, and it's okay. You're gonna bumble along and have no idea what you're doing sometimes when you're doing research, and that's totally fair. But that's, again, why we have principle of organized skepticism, for instance, to check and critique and challenge everything. And sometimes it makes you even feel more stupid because of peer review stuff that's like, oh, I should have tried that. Happens all the time. But this is where we acknowledge such things. Let me know what you think. What do you think about the idea of being stupid in research? That's it for now. If you like this video, hit the like button on the way out the door, comment on the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, all that lovely good jazz. Until next time, I'm Adrian, and I hope you stay curious, my friends.